From the Rainbow Flag Room to the Hollywood Fruit Bowl, it's the Frank DeCaro Show, live from New York City and L.A. on OutQ.
Hi there, I'm Dennis Hensley. I'm filling in for Frank DeCaro, who's on vacation. This is the Frank DeCaro Show here on SiriusXM OutQ 109. I'm in the LA studio with Doria Biddle. We've got Gonzo running things in New York. And joining us here in the LA studio is Bryan Thompson. He is one of the contestants on the new reality competition show, Motor City Masters, which is coming up on TruTV. Now, Bryan, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. It's great to be here.
Now, when does this show premiere on TruTV?
June 24th. 10 p.m. Eastern and Western.
Now, to me, when I was watching the trailer of it, it looked like, Project Runway for car designers. Is that a fair description?
Yeah, that's actually an excellent description. It's the same production company.
Right.
Bun and Murray created Project Runway, and this is when they explained it to me, they said Project Runway for cars. It's a lot more than that because there's so much more involved. But yeah, that's the model.
That's the basic gist of it. Now, when you say car designers, is it the outside and the sort of aesthetic look of a car, or is it literally like the engine and the carburetor and stuff like that?
That's a great question because, you know, when I wanted to become a car designer, I was terrified that I'd have to understand how cars worked.
Right.
No, car design is really the styling. It's how the car looks.
Are there ever? But does that ever conflict with that other stuff where you're like, I would love to do this, but there's no room for the battery or the carburetor? Like you have to have some kind of a rudimentary knowledge of.
Yeah, I like
to stuff.
Absolutely, I like to describe car design as you're basically packaging boxes. And you don't really have to know how those boxes work, but you have to know that they exist.
Right.
So car designers, we live in this world of aesthetics. And then we work with engineers and marketing people. And those three, the trinity, come together to make a car.
Right.
And so, for example, if you're working on a sports car and your engineer will say, well, that looks great. That front end's really nice and low and sexy. But I got a radiator that's 5 millimeters higher than that. You got to restyle it to fit that in. And that's what I do. I have to understand what's in there.
Right. But you have to be able to make it work for all three of those elements that you talked about.
Yeah, and design takes time and finesse, and you have to be able to take in information to find out, hey, that radiator is that big. How do I restyle this surface so it's still attractive and compelling and inspire some sort of desire who buys it, but still cover that radiator, if you will, or engine. Or anything else, or make people fit in it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, what is your background before you audition for a show like this or submit yourself for a show like this? Had you designed cars professionally, or was it something you always wanted to do? What was your background?
Yes to all of it. I wanted to be a car designer since I was a little kid. I actually have been in the industry for about 15 years. I started at Peugeot Citroën in France, and then spent most of my career at Nissan.
Okay, cool.
Got hired right out of school at Nissan Design in Southern California.
Was there a specific car that you worked on intensely while you were at Nissan, or a number of different cars?
Yeah, I mean, I was there for 8-9 years, so yes.
What was your favorite thing that you worked on when you were at Nissan?
Oh, well, there's two different questions. The first thing I worked on was the Titan. I did the Titan Armada interiors. My favorite one, though, is probably the most unlikely source of inspiration in terms of car design. I designed the Nissan NV 2500 cargo van, and that one is my favorite one. And the reason is because it's a big box, and it's a big box that nobody wanted to work on. And it's one thing everybody loves to design sports cars. I myself included. I love the passionate shapes in the sports car.
Yeah, they're sexy.
They're sexy.
But somebody's like, you've got to do this family minivan thing.
Well, it's a cargo van, no less. Even bigger, even less to work with. And so the challenge is how do you take a project where they no money and B, no room to move, and how do you make it compelling and interesting? And frankly, my passion for car design comes from the low, the entry level. I love the everyman cars, the economy cars and the plumber's car and the blue collar cars. So working on a van for me was like the pinnacle of my career.
And also it's the little things that make something sexy or aesthetically pleasing or cool or, the shape of that or the curve of that. Now, when you drive around and you see those cars, do you think, oh, yeah.
I get it.
Because your work is around you all the time.
Yes. And if you're driving it's literally around you if you've done an interior. Yeah. Now I have some great stories about getting inspiration for interiors. We can touch on those later if you want to. But it's a very interesting job because you you create something, 5-10 years in advance, and then your life moves on. And the engineers develop it, and then 5 years later, you see it one day on the road. And I can remember the first time, who thinks a cargo van is sexy? But I looked at it. Somebody had put these big wheels on, and had this great stance. And I was like, that guy, he got it. He gave the car the stance I always wanted it to have. And so, what makes you smile is when somebody takes your creation and they evolve it and personalize it, if you will.
That's so cool. Now, you're going to be on this reality show. How many contestants start off at the beginning on Motor City Masters?
Yeah, you can call it Motor City Masters, Motor City Madness. We called it all sorts of things on the show. It was wild. There were 10 of us.
Okay, they start out with 10, and what does the winner receive?
The winner receives $100,000
right.
and a Camaro Z28.
Wow.
Which is quite different than a regular Camaro, which I didn't actually realize right away. It's a pretty badass car.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to it's quite a beast. So, it's a great prize.
It's a great prize. I hope you win it. Now, Doria, is this the kind of show that you would want to watch?
I find this kind of thing fascinating, especially car design and the way I know that you probably can take a look at any car and that's a Camaro, that's this. For me, that's gotten tougher and tougher over time because I feel like a lot of design a lot of the cars are all kind of looking very similar, and I know that's about aerodynamics and everything, but
it also it feels like sometimes they're playing it safe, or
I'm not sure. I mean, I think that some of the later model Mercedes sedans look kind of like a Toyota, and that kind of bothers me. You look at the cars from the 60s and 70s, and they really had their own unique looks. Is that something as a designer that you feel that they definitely kind of put restrictions on you in terms of it's got to have mileage, therefore you have to have it really sleek, and there are only certain kind of so many aerodynamic ideas for a car that's going to be a certain length and all of that.
Yeah, the best way to answer that question is you're absolutely right. There are so many more requirements today than there were in the past. However, requirements also inspire opportunity. And what I mean by that is if you look at every era of car design, there really were similarities to the proportion and shapes of cars. Look, cars in the 20s were very tall. They're essentially rudimentary SUVs, tall cars with ground clearance.
Kind of boxy.
Yeah. And then, you have these beautiful, sexy shapes in the 60s and 70s. And then 70s are when the federal regulations started really to come in and safety became a much more important issue. But it's constantly a battle and a race between the regulations and the technology. So if the regulation comes in and says, well, you need to have a bumper that's very large, I'm not going to get a number, 5-10 mile an hour bumper. Well, at first everybody freaks out and they're like, oh my God, it's got to have these huge bumpers on it. So cars in the 80s.
That's going to ruin my ideas.
Oh my God. And believe me,
I'm an artist.
There are tears in the studio. No, but you look at this car with these huge bumpers and then all of a sudden you figure out, oh, well, if we use this material, we can shrink that shape and get it smaller and make it sexy again. But it's interesting. We're in an interesting era in car design now where there are so many regulations, so many things have been standardized, where the airbags are, where they need to be for the passengers, where the crush zones need to be in order to protect the occupant. So I do see that similarity that you talk about. It's almost like a lot of these cars, they could all fit in the same sock. Whether it's a Nissan or a Honda or a Mercedes, they sometimes look like that. And a lot of that comes from the regulations. All of that also is because it's frankly a very small industry. And you have a lot of people working at different car companies and they may have a bag of tricks that they take with them.
They use it over and over.
But where I'm taking this is that as technology progresses and we don't need, and we have more tools in our bag, if you will, I think you're going to start to see more variety. And what I mean by that is everything from bringing the design maybe to the consumer. For years, it's always been just the professionals, but now technology is out there where, you can personalize things. Who knows where 3D printing's going? Maybe people could print their own car, download a car, this kind of stuff. So,
well, it's like people do with their sneakers now. It's like you make your own pair of Nikes. Maybe next time you make your own car.
Yeah, fashion is a great source of inspiration for car design. If you look at fashion, it's usually a little farther ahead than cars, but you can kind of get a sense of where the industry will go. If you think about it this way, if you can get the package where all of the safety and all the requirements are met, and as technology moves on, you can allow people to express themselves more. I do think we're going to enter an area where you start to see a lot more variety again. And I sure hope so.
So on the show, how much is, because a lot of designing is sketching and coming up with ideas, and then a lot of it's hands-on. You have to work with that welder and stuff. Like, what's the mix of like vision versus physical, manual, creating the stuff?
Okay, so this is a great question, and this is a huge surprise to me, which actually was a lot of fun in the show. Full disclaimer, this is what we look like as car designers. Car designers, we get up in the morning, we go to work, we do some sketches, and we usually have a cappuccino or something, and then we spend the rest of the day sort of pointing at, like, say, modelers and engineers, and can you raise this line? We need to move that a little more. Hey, my clay modelers, help me refine the surface. But it's sort of...
so your big tool is a cappuccino.
My big tool is a cappuccino. As long as I walk around and hold that, I know that I've got something in my hand and I'm occupied. Now, what was different on this show is that we actually had to build what we designed. And frankly, I hadn't used any of the tools in the shop. But I love that because I finally... I got to get my hands dirty.
Right.
Look at it this way. There's this sort of perceived barrier in design where it's something we do as designers. We like to draw and we don't like to really flesh out the details. We just like to think of the ideas and have somebody else do that. But there's also this barrier that's someone else's job. That if you start raking on a clay model or moving a line, that you're taking away work from someone else.
Right.
And
you're not supposed to do it. It's bad form in that world.
It's bad form, and it's sort of reinforced that you shouldn't do that.
Right.
That you should just spend your time drawing. And so it creates these artificial barriers. And I've spent 15 years in that world. And so to walk into this fictitious TV studio and say, no, you can do whatever you want.
Here's your goggles.
Here's your goggles, and try not to cut your face off.
And we don't have any cappuccino.
Yeah, there are no cappuccino. No,
yeah,
just get up and do it.
We actually have a caller who is
great.
calling. Let's go to the phones.
Joe in Montana. You're on the Frank DeCaro Show with Dennis Hensley and Bryan Thompson.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, Brian, it's Joe Trelongo. How you doing, bud?
Well, Joe, hi. How are you?
Do you guys know each other?
I do know Joe Trelongo.
I love it. All right.
That's awesome.
I'm an automotive journalist. I've been writing about cars for about 10 years.
Right
and I just wanted to chime in that, we were talking about color in cars, and, and Doria was asking about, why they all kind of look alike. And a big part of that, and Brian speak to this, it's the public that just, companies like Kia put, because you had the little soul, they put a houndstooth interior in their car. Audi did this beautiful green leather interior, and they did this baseball stitching and with orange. And overall, it just didn't sell. And that's a huge, I can't figure that out because they want color in houses. There's all these shows about, designers and clothes, but when it comes to car interiors, overwhelmingly the public goes for, I think the most popular exterior color is silver and white, and the interior color is black, gray, and tan. And I don't know how you change that.
Well, here's the thing. So in big industry car design, the goal is always to eke out every last penny of the car sales profit,
right?
And we are in this period. We're in this, and this is what I was talking about earlier, where the technology has not caught up yet with the needs, and that will change. So, for example, right now, it's very safe to do silver, white, black cars, and people buy those cars. And people buy those cars because they know they can resell them. And so what you have is this sort of culture of people buying cars they don't really love, cars they don't really hate, but it looks okay. Where you look in the 70s, I mean, if you look at like a photograph of the freeway in the 70s, it looked like a bag of Skittles. It was just, yellows and peaches and oranges and all these great colors.
You remember it was called Metamora cloth, and it was a Cadillac. It was a white leather interior with orange mandarin plaid insets, and the public loved it. And you couldn't sell that today if you tried.
Well, but I think where we'll go with this is where I was taking this is that, yes, so again, as the technology moves forward and people can personalize their own stuff, it's no longer so much of a risk for a car company to invest hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of dollars into a pattern that they may or may not sell. But as the localized printing technology or being able to personalize things in the same way you do with shoes and sneakers becomes more accessible to the automotive industry, then the company can start to provide more of a template. And it doesn't really matter what color it is because the consumer is going to change it anyway.
Right, because they have the power. It's not like they have to build 100,000 of them. It's one person can take it and make it their own.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you for the call.
Thanks, Joe.
We need to take a break, but can you stay a few more
Yes,
minutes?
we want to talk more about the show and more about cars, and you have a Katy Perry tie-in. So, Katy Perry fans, don't you tune away. All right, I'm Dennis Hensley filling in. This is the Frank DeCaro Show on SiriusXM OutQ 109.
Because sequins are always correct.
Jumpin' jewelry, Batman!
It's the backless glamour of the Frank DeCaro Show. Live from New York and Los Angeles.
Hi there, I'm Dennis Hensley. I'm filling in for Frank DeCaro, who's on vacation. I'm in the LA studio with Doria Biddle. We've got Gonzo running things in New York. And joining us in the LA studio is Bryan Thompson. He's one of the contestants of the new TruTV reality competition show, Motor City Masters, which is like Project Runway for car designers. Very cool idea, very interesting concept. And I've got a lot of questions about the show, but we also have a caller who wants to talk to Bryan.
Yeah, Russ in Oklahoma.
Hey, Russ.
Hi, Russ.
Oh, hi. I'm actually in Orange County, California.
Okay.
Which is a lot like Oklahoma. Maybe he's in Oklahoma the musical.
I've been in that one before.
I have too. I was a dancer.
I was just wondering. I'm just wondering about design when it comes to the car design. I've noticed the Tesla design seems to be a more like the newest design that it appears that other manufacturers are following. That's my first question. And number two is, what do you think about Tesla offering their patents? So those are my two questions.
It's funny you should bring that up because I just saw an interview with the founder of Tesla yesterday, and as a sort of layman not super in the know about this, I sort of watched this going, they're really doing different things. I felt like this, maybe that it was a puff piece, but maybe I felt like they're really like seem to be breaking ground. So what do you think of what they're doing?
So it's twofold. Well, first of all, Tesla's design is headed up by Franz. Get this name. This is a great name, by the way. Franz von Holzhausen.
Of course.
Yes, and he was the head of Mazda Design, and he's an excellent designer. I have a huge admiration for his work. What's been amazing to watch his transition from Mazda to Tesla is that they've sort of broken the constraints of the typical car industry setup because it's a startup.
Yeah.
And I love the startups. There's one, there are the ones that we all know, and the ones that succeed, and the ones that don't succeed but make news, the Fiskars, the Teslas. And then there are ones that don't succeed. But as a whole, the startup car company is wonderful for the industry because it really shakes up the foundation and says, just because it's always been done this way doesn't mean it always has to be done this way. So yes, I see that happening, and I personally hope that there are more Teslas that come up, that emerge and are successful.
Right. Now, I want to get back a little bit to thank you for the call, by the way, and for bringing that up. I want to get back to the show. Being on a reality show, there's you using your skills, but there's also the stress of being under the cameras and all of that stuff. What surprised you about the experience?
What surprised me was that we had to do so much of the work ourselves. No, it's very strange. When you're typically designing in a studio, you just kind of go into a little tunnel and you sort of disappear from the world for a while. You get lost, and you really can't do that on a television show. There are, maybe 5 cameras on you at one point, and at first, it's very disconcerting because they're you're like, how can this be interesting? All I'm doing is drawing or something. But you get to a point where you just sort of say, I can't be self-conscious about every moment of my life, and you just sort of, you
start out thinking about how you're coming off, and at a certain point, you're too worn down, and you have too much on your plate to really.
Let's put it this way: when they're taping everything you do, and you're recorded from everything you do to going to the bathroom, you get real comfortable real fast.
Yeah. Did you ever cry?
I may have cried at one moment, and they're not going to let me spill one single bean.
Okay.
But
it is stressful.
It is stressful.
In other words, there are times
did you
when
throw anything?
No, I would never. I'm a very unviolent person, but it's very. You know what? It's the most stressful part, I would say, is, you have an expectation as a designer of talent and a type of person you work with. And when you're put in with 10 different people, frankly, there are some that are more talented than others. And when you start to figure that out real fast, okay, this is also more than a competition. I have to get this work done. And some of these people can do it and some of them can't.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're put on teams and some challenges.
Yes.
How much do you think about what you're going to wear on the show? Because you have to pack the perfect. It's going to be out there
I love it. You ask all the good questions.
No, come on. You're going to go on a reality show. I'm going to wear the V-neck tee that makes my arms look good, or not, or whatever.
And this makes my eyes pop.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
But he's right. As a gay man, you think of the ones that make your arms look good.
Right, and you're in great shape, by the way.
Well,
were you able to work out at all when you were out there?
it was difficult. I had a few. I could lift weights every now and then, but it's it's can be 18-hour days.
Yeah.
So it's really funny. You learn a lot about yourself with the clothes because there's so many things you can't wear. You can't wear anything with logos, right?
Yeah, of course.
You lay out all of your clothes.
Yes.
And then they evaluate them, right?
Yeah.
And I learned that everything I own except for this shirt is plaid.
Yeah.
It was just like,
And they don't want you to wear
and they don't want to. So they come in. They're like,
what's that thing that it's called moire?
Moires.
Yeah.
Moires.
See, we're learning a lot.
Yeah, and so basically, the first day they come in, and I hear this sort of sucking of the teeth. We may need to do some shopping.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, sorry.
Wow, that hurts.
Yeah.
That's the last thing you want. You're a gay guy going on a reality show. The first thing they say,
Do
we
they
need to go
shop
shopping.
for you, though?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
Then, so that's something to learn. If you're going on a reality show, only bring your plaid.
And then you get new
all
clothes.
new clothes.
Oh my God, that's genius. I wish I had been so thoughtful,
Yeah.
but no, I'm just dumb and lucky, I guess.
Now, does the fact that you're gay ever come up? Was it ever a thing? Because back in the day, that used to be kind of a thing on shows. But
Eventually, they'd reveal that at some point in the show, so there'd be that.
Yeah, my sexuality has been pretty transparent. I mean, when I was 5 years old, I had a poster of Eric Estrada on my bedroom wall. My mom walked in.
you were a Paunch guy.
I was a Paunch guy. My mom,
I was more of a Paunch than a John guy. I
yeah,
like the
John-
bravado.
Paunch, he just had the body, right?
Right.
I mean, just the quick story. When I put it on the wall, my mom walked in my bedroom at 5, and she's like, you can have this, but normally little boys don't have a picture of a half-naked man on their wall. Tell me why you have it. And I said, well, it makes me feel good inside.
Oh.
So I've been pretty out for all that time, and frankly.
That's so great.
My gay brother was drawing pictures of Nell Carter.
Oh, was he? No.
No,
Okay, so we would have been friends.
Yeah.
Nell Carter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it makes him feel good inside.
Yeah, exactly. The other kids were drawing battleships and airplanes. He was drawing Nell Carter.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, getting back to the car design.
Mm-hmm.
As a car designer, do you do the exterior and the interior? Are there guys those are interior guys and those are exterior guys? Because they have to work together, but they're very different.
Mm-hmm. Yes. It's a choice. I tend to be, very enthusiastic and I like all sorts of design. So I've purposely targeted both interior and exterior in my career.
Yeah.
Frankly, because I always wanted to be a freelancer and I knew I would need both skills.
Yeah.
But a lot of designers will specialize. Hey, I'm only an exterior guy. I don't touch the interior. Or I'm only an interior guy. I can't be bothered with the exterior. It really depends on personal choice. For me, it's like why, it's like Christmas. I want all the gifts. Why wouldn't you try everything? Do an interior this week and exterior next week. But yeah, it's both if you want it.
Now, you've also done some projects outside of cars. You worked on some Katy Perry video props. Or tell us about that.
Well, so I do, as a freelancer, I've been a freelancer since 2008, and I do a lot of entertainment design. That's the brunt of my work here in Los Angeles. It's funny that I typically work for a wonderful production designer named Terry Whitaker, and she sends me work, she's just an excellent designer, so she's done multiple Katy Perry videos, and I've helped out. And what I did for the video that you're talking about was for Roar. I helped redesign and build. It was almost like a mini Motor City Masters. The throne for Roar. And so
the throne that Katy roars from,
yeah,
the roaring throne.
Yeah, that's I can have that as a partial. I contributed highly to that, and I'll tell you one thing: there is
because if you don't have the right throne, you don't feel like roaring.
You're not roaring.
No.
And that's the thing. There wasn't the right throne, and so I had to redesign it and rebuild it on set while she waited because it delayed production. Talk about pressure. Motor City Masters was nothing compared to having Katy Perry sitting there, filing your nails, while you're like, we need more Birds of Paradise. Yeah. Where do I get them?
Did you have a moment with her? Did you get to meet her?
I don't know if Katy would remember me, but I do remember she was very gracious and
her.
She's very sweet because she literally had to wait while we redid this thing. And the thing I noticed about her, she sings on set, which is wonderful. It's like a private concert.
So she's singing when they're taping the video?
Oh, yeah, she's actually singing live. Yeah. And,
good.
Which is cool.
Well, I think it helps with the performance because it looks more real.
It is real. And there's, what I learned about her is that, and we don't talk about forever about it, but what I learned about her is there's definitely a difference between normal people and celebrities. And what I mean by that is when she comes on set, she looks beautiful like any, but beautiful like, just a beautiful girl. When that camera comes on and you see her through the lens, it's like she comes alive. I was like, oh, I'm a convert when I watched her through the lens of the camera. It was a very cool experience to see that difference in persona. So yeah, that was my my interaction. It was a lot of fun.
Now, speaking of seeing somebody on camera, do you have a ritual planned for when the show starts airing? Are you going to watch it with friends? Are you nervous? Are you excited? It's going to be out there.
I think I want to. I think we're gonna go to a bar here in West Hollywood and have like premiere nights or something, because I have to be with friends to see that stuff, because it's embarrassing, of course.
It's
You'll
gonna
let
be
us
great.
know.
Yes, exactly.
Well, we're very excited to watch Bryan Thompson on Motor City Masters. It's on TruTV. How can people learn more about what you do and also learn about the show?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, plug. Well, Bryan Thompson Design is my personal website. It's just my name.
Right. From thrones to cars.
Yeah, and back again.
Yeah.
And then TruTV.com has all of the information on the show. When you get there, it's right there.
All right. Last question. If you could get up from this studio and walk out to the parking lot and get into any car in the world of any era and drive away in it, what car would it be?
Oh, geez.
And you can't have my Prius.
It would be a 70s economy car. It'd probably be a Chevy Vega or a Datsun B210.
Why? That's the kind of stuff they would give away on Price is Right for $2,000.
Yeah. I love the cars that are the fabric of everyday life that are gone now. I love the 70s, and I love those cars. They weren't trying so hard to be so aggressive then. The aesthetic was almost more benign and friendly. And I like things that are happy. Whereas today, everything is about, whether it's a Mercedes or a Toyota or Chevy. It's all about my performance is faster than yours. Look how fast I am and aggressive I am. I'm extraordinary, and I'm protected. Whereas, I love the idea of something that's happy.
I love it. All right. You're very happy, Bryan. Thank you so much for joining us. Watch Bryan on Motor City Masters on TruTV. This is Dennis Hensley. I'm filling in for Frank DeCaro, and this is SiriusXM OutQ 109.